How can you research your Italy trip? What are the best resources and where do you find them? We're going to talk about all that and more, including a fun and free new tool we've recently created to help with your trip planning on episode 247 of Untold Italy.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Benvenuti, ciao everyone. The year is closing in on us. I can hardly believe it will be November next week. Yikes. And up until a couple of weeks ago, I had no Italy trip booked for next year. But now I do. I'm taking my first winter trip to beautiful Italia and we land there, my family and I, on New Year's Day. I'll be in Rome for a bit, then we're heading up to the Dolomites for a snowy adventure, I hope. We don't get too much snow here in Australia, so the excitement is building. I need to investigate some proper boots because who knows what's going to happen with this weather. But one thing is for sure, I want to be prepared because it did actually snow on our early October Dolomites tour this year. That was a bit of a surprise actually, but it looks so pretty. You can check out the photos and fun times on the tour over at our Untold Italy Tours Instagram if you're interested. So as I prepare and research for this trip, I got to thinking, how do we research for our trips these days? Even though I've been to Italy countless times, I've not been in winter and definitely not up in the mountains. So a lot of questions spring to mind, like how cold is it generally? What gear will we need? What's going to be open or closed? And are there any special rules about driving in mountainous areas at this time of year? I could go on, but there are a lot of questions. Now, many moons ago when I first started travelling, no Aussie traveller would be seen in Europe without their Lonely Planet guidebooks. Honestly, we didn't have many other ways to research other than chatting with fellow travellers on the road. But things have changed a bit since then and we get our information from many sources. But can we trust them to give us great advice? And that's what I'm going to be exploring today and to let you know about a wonderful new tool that we've created just for you. It's a free tool and hopefully that can fast track some of your trip planning because I know you have a lot of questions and sometimes podcasts like this do raise even more questions. So it's about how can we really help you get the information quickly and trusted information because there's a lot of content out there these days. So usually my first point of call would be Google to find relevant information. But hey, I don't know about you, but Google is a bit of a hot mess right now. You have to sift through all sorts of irrelevant information before you get to what you need. And that is for everything, travel, just general life things, everything. So you have to sift through ads, snippets, Reddit feeds. And you know what? I'm generally not a fan of those snippets because they only give you a part of the picture and they're often lacking in nuance and context. And you'll hear me say this quite a bit on this episode. Understanding the context of what you're reading is super important and really trusting who is providing the information. I think that's the key to getting great information about anything and particularly travel on the internet these days. Often it's not clear who's providing the information, which is really true on forums like Reddit. I mean, just because someone's writing on a forum doesn't make them an expert, and I'll have a chat more about that later, but Google and social media is training us not to think deeply and it's training us to look for quick fixes, which is never a good idea in my experience. And, you know, when it comes to travel, the quick answer may not be the right one, even if it is more popular. Google says it's pushing expert answers to the top of its search feeds, but sorry, I'm not seeing that at all. Last week, the second result for where to stay in Rome was a blog post written 6 years ago by someone who'd written it after their first 3-day visit. So it's not relevant to a lot of people. It's not recent. And so how much value does an article like that have? But I'm sure it's getting a lot of clicks. And here's the kicker, my English-speaking friends. If you know anything about how Google or any other search engine works and think it's hard for Americans, Australians, British, or any English speakers to get on page one of the search results, and let me tell you, it's really, really hard, imagine what it is like for Italian businesses and services that you may want to support. It's nearly impossible for them, even if they were good at online marketing, which generally they're not. So, if you're a native English speaker, it's really easy to sort of structure your content, if you know how, to help those articles get up on the rankings. But if you don't know how, you're in a real bind, and it does cause a lot of problems for when you're looking for things that are interesting and unique to do. You're not going to find it, unfortunately, unless you've got a really sophisticated way of researching and understanding how the internet works. So here we have the perfect storm. You're looking on Google for answers like where to buy Colosseum tickets, and it's giving you what it likes based on its algorithm and who is paying for ads. And then you end up with a laundry list of sellers. At that point, for me, frustration is at an all-time high. Luckily for our trip, I know our friends at Throne and Vine have a wonderful website and resource for the Dolomites, and I trust their information because I know they've been travelling to that region twice a year for many, many years, and they update their content. And believe me, this is a region that takes quite some time to understand properly, particularly when it comes to getting around. Usually we go straight to Google Maps or Rome to Rio, which is a service that helps you map out various ways to get from point A to point B. And like I mentioned earlier, no nuance, no context. They do not have the cable cars and chairlifts in these tools. So you really can't get a good answer to questions like how long it's going to take to get to the top of the Cicada Peak without a good bit of digging around. Google Maps has been a game changer when it does have all the information about traffic conditions, roads, and updates like that. But I bet you know faster ways around your neighbourhood than Google Maps is prepared to share. You know what? That's true of everywhere in the world, and especially the Dolomites. Another classic example where Google Maps is pretty hopeless is the Amalfi Coast. Sure, you'll get a really good driving option, but what it doesn't let you know is that the drive is on a one-way road that some people find challenging to even drive on, or it's bumper to bumper in summer and is a very slow road to drive. Nor does it tell you that parking is really, really difficult in the towns of the Amalfi Coast, and it's also extremely expensive. While driving is super fast, and when you check up Google Maps for the Amalfi Coast, you'll go, oh yeah, I can drive there in, 45 minutes. And that's really fast compared to the ferry and the local bus. But those options have their pros and cons too. Ferries are subject to weather conditions, and the local bus gets overcrowded and uncomfortable on the very winding road. Buses don't have room for luggage, and both options require a big walk up a very steep hill when you get to Positano. I've rarely seen these tools come up with a route to access the Amalfi Coast via Salerno, a town south of the coast. The traffic to and from Salerno is a fraction of the traffic from Naples and Sorrento. Just a thought there. That's the route I'd be suggesting from personal experience. So if you're wanting to know the best way to the Amalfi Coast from Naples or Sorrento, in my opinion, it is in fact by private driver service. Obviously, this is not the cheapest way, but they'll get you there comfortably and quickly with no need to worry about luggage and big steep hills or crazy taxi drivers. And then there's the ferries on lakes like Como and Garda. It's very difficult to sort out the timetables, and they are seasonal and rarely, if ever, published in advance. So you're flying blind a bit, planning around that, which is absolutely fine if you've got a bit of time on your hands, but if you have a shorter trip or you're busy at work and don't have much time to do some deep research, it's a big pain. So my hint for this one is to try to find the previous relevant season timetable as a PDF or image so you can reference that. Once again, if this information isn't available on the web for Google Maps and Rome to Rio or other services to reference, how can they provide you a good answer? So it's really important to know what is and isn't available when you're researching your trip to Italy. Now, another way people like to research their trips is by using online forums like Reddit and our own Italy travel planning community on Facebook. So this is where the general public, whose credentials you don't know and can't check, will answer your burning questions about travel in Italy. Our group now has over 150,000 members helping each other plan their trips, and while our team does an excellent job of moderating, and shout out to them, with up to 2,000 comments a day, it's really difficult to catch information that is incorrect. But here are some examples. Do you need an international driver's permit to rent a car if you're from the United States, Australia, or outside Europe? And the answer to that is yes, you do. That is the law. But the amount of times people jump in and say that you don't need it because they've never personally been checked is mind-blowing. And unfortunately, people follow that advice because they don't want to spend $30 getting the permit. Another one I saw yesterday was a woman planning a trip to the Amalfi Coast in December, and she wanted to stay in Positano. So a lot of people chimed in with their favourite restaurant and why it's a lovely place to visit. And of course it's doable in December, but the town is not really set up for tourist visits at that time of year. In fact, that's when many locals take a long break. And as a first-time visitor to Italy, I'm not sure that was what she envisioned. In the first example of the international driver's permit, this could be a really costly mistake, as large fines apply if you're asked to provide it by police and can't, and not having one will invalidate your insurance. Or, in the case of a friend of mine, you simply won't get the car and will need to make other travel arrangements. For our friend who was interested in Positano, there are several other options available for someone looking for an Italian coastal escape in December, but that would depend on time available, budget, and expectations. Personally, while forums can be good if you have a specific question and there are people online to answer who it is clear have a lot of experience, but you know what? I prefer an expert opinion, and it's much quicker to get an answer tailored to your needs if you ask an expert. So, for example, I'll always ask Olivia on our team which cooking class I should do if I want to learn certain dishes. Why? Olivia has done many cooking classes in Italy and can evaluate them objectively. So she, to me, is a much better resource than if you're going to ask someone who's done one cooking class and maybe they had the most fantastic time and yes, they enjoyed it and they want to share it, and that's wonderful. But it may not be the exact type of thing that you're looking for. So that's why I prefer experts, because you'll get a quick and fast answer from people that you trust. That leads me to thinking about what about Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and social media in general. And this is becoming a very popular way to research travel these days too. But I don't know about you. There are some amazing videos and pictures, but I find it all a bit hard to keep track of. And even when I save to my folders on those platforms, do I even go back there? Not often. Here we go back again to whether people are giving out good advice or information that's relevant to you. My feeds are inundated with where to eat in Rome at the moment, and I have to say I'm pretty underwhelmed by it all. So I prefer tasty food over a performance meal. So, for example, where someone's twirling spaghetti in a big wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano. Now, each to their own, travel your own way. That's what we're all about here. And you know what's going to give you a buzz, but that is not for me. I'm on the hunt for the perfect salad. I know that sounds strange in Rome, but they do amazing salads with really cool vegetables that are kind of bitter. So bitter greens. If you've listened to this podcast a lot, you'll know that that's what I'm really into. So I'm looking to locals like Denise, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, for that information. It's also very easy for creators to copy each other and double down on venues. So a great example of this is the famous sandwich shop, Al Antico Vinaio. So I reckon I've seen their panini from as many camera angles as possible, minus the line that it takes to get in there. So this is pretty amazing sandwich with a lot of cold cut meats in it, and it can feed a family of 4, I think. If you ask me, it's huge. The restaurant Roscioli used to be, okay, well, it still is a bit my favourite restaurant in Rome, and that's a well-known fact, but it's now nearly impossible to get a table there, and you know what? I blame myself. So I've learned the hard way to keep a few of these places off social media and for friends, family, and paid clients only. To be honest, every creator or person that has a business doing trips in Italy is doing this. So what that means is that everyone is being lured to the same places, which are getting busier and busier. And perhaps that's not quite the experience that you want. So what I want to ask you to do is cast a critical eye over what you're saving and who you follow. And also remember, most people want things to look glossy on social media. And look, I'm going to admit, I'm not any different to that at all. So it's like their own personal or business magazine. Things may not be quite as they seem. Remember those gorgeous views of Positano? Well, often the poster forgets to tell you about all the steps to get there or the crowded streets, don't they? When we're looking at social media, let's just make sure that we don't take everything for granted and do a little bit of extra research on top. So then how about YouTube and podcasts? Because it's harder to, I guess, trick the camera on YouTube with video, and with podcasts, obviously, they're long-form content. One of the biggest challenges with any type of content, but especially these long-form pieces of work that you do find on YouTube or podcasts like this one, is that it's nearly impossible to keep it all up to date. Once it's published, it's out there. And unless you know something that I don't, it's not easy to update. So you might see an amazing video about Rome that was made a year ago, but as we all know now, thanks to Instagram and some recent podcast episodes of ours, Rome is pretty much a building site at the moment as they prepare for the Jubilee in 2025. I really feel for people that are going to Rome and don't know about this, because they're going to get those, unfortunately, not so pretty pictures of the city that we've come to expect. Don't worry if you're going next year, that's all going to be sorted out. But what my point is that podcasts and YouTube, they're a snapshot of a moment in time. And that's, I guess, the same for social media too. Now, luckily, Italy is one of those places where generally things don't change too much, like for 1,000 years. But this doesn't apply to restaurants or train schedules and other more modern practical examples. So again, it really pays to check your sources. My YouTube feed is full of attractive videos of people doing wonderful things in Italy, but they are usually very short on detail and raise more questions than answers. And that's because they are snapshots of a moment in time in a really, really lovely package. One account that I wanted to mention that's really great is RomeWise, which is an excellent channel made by an American woman who lives in Rome. And you know what? That's the type of content I trust. This is not someone that's visited Italy once. She's there, she's on the ground, and she's delivering up resources that are really, really helpful. The next type of research I want to explore is friends and family and your network. As you can imagine, I get hit up a lot for Italy travel tips, which I'm really happy to give. What's interesting though is a lot of people, my friends and family, ignore them. Now, I'm not going to name and shame here, but I do find it quite funny. Anyway, all I can say is travel recommendations are a strange thing, and having been around the traps a bit, if I'm going somewhere new and I know someone who has spent serious time there, I will be asking their advice and, more importantly, the best place to get information on that place, because to give really specific travel information, you need to ask a lot of questions and it takes up quite a bit of time. Now, refer to my comments about the Dolomites earlier. My chats with Kate and Vin from Throne and Vine are invaluable, as are all the episodes on this podcast where I ask locals, who are usually professionals in the tourism industry, about their hometown and region and what visitors like to do and what they wish that visitors could see in their hometown. And to me, this is the best travel information that you could possibly get. But it's also true that people always want to jump in with their travel advice when it comes to planning trips. So feel free to ignore any travel advice that you're given, especially if you know that their travel style doesn't match yours. And that includes my advice too. Lastly, I do tend to refer back to good old guidebooks. Why? Guidebook publishers follow rigorous research and validation processes and pride themselves on accurate and useful information. A quick scan of the contributors to the latest Lonely Planet Italy reveals a list of writers that I know and trust, and I was delighted to see that several of them have been guests on this podcast. Rick Steves is another popular choice, and I can attest to the fact that he checks and revalidates his content because I bumped into him in Rome doing exactly that earlier this year. And let's not forget one of our favourite guests, Corinna Cook. I know how much thought, passion, and meticulous planning goes into each and every Glam Italia guide, where Corinna shares her unique perspective and amazing recommendations for exploring Italy. She does so much preparation for every podcast she's on too. It's a joy to work with her, and I love her content because I know just how fastidious she is about checking all the details. But I guess the challenge with guidebooks is that they're out of date as soon as they're written and they're heavy to carry around. They may not cover lesser known regional areas in any depth either because, unfortunately, it doesn't make commercial sense. But the content is generally excellent and they often include a physical map, which is actually the best trip planning tool around. Where's next in travel research? Where do we go from here? How can we access relevant and expert information to help us plan our trips? This is a challenge I've been grappling with for a bit. There will always be a place for all the research methods that I've mentioned so far, but sifting through all that content takes time. So what can be done? Well, you could book in for a trip consultation with our team, and I highly recommend doing that if you're overwhelmed, time poor, and looking for a fast-track result and an excellent plan in a short amount of time. A trip planner with years of experience planning trips and spending time in Italy is really worth their weight in gold. You could also hire a travel agent, but make sure that they know Italy very, very well. A general travel agent is not going to be much help apart from with flights, unfortunately, because guess what? They're probably going to use Google or a standard set of resources. Now, the more modern and other option that people are trying out is to use ChatGPT or one of the other many trip planning apps flooding our inboxes and feeds. Now, they make it sound so easy and fun, but I've tried a few out and wow, they come back with some either really generic options that are short on critical details or wild ideas that can't be put together logistically. I get a good chuckle about the 3-day road trips from Sorrento to Palermo. I've driven those roads and I can think of 100 better ways to spend 3 days than driving them with minimal opportunities to stop and enjoy Italy. In my opinion, we're a long way off a truly AI-generated plan that suits my needs because, like I mentioned before, AI, Google Maps, and other tools like this are only as good as the information that feeds them. And the reality is, and this is why I love Italy, a lot of the really good stuff and even basic practical information is either not online or structured properly for these tools to read. So if they can't access them, how can they share them with you? Plus, publishers are pushing content behind paywalls so it can't be scraped. Our site has been repeatedly scraped without payment, or thanks, mind you, for the benefit of these AI tools who then have the audacity not to credit the source or to put the information in context. I think what's going to happen is that people like me may not put our information out there because, unfortunately, if it gets scraped by these tools, then it becomes, unfortunately, pretty worthless. That's something that I'm grappling with, but I know there are many of you out there who like doing your own trip research and enjoy spending time working out the logistics and finding wonderful places to visit. So I was curious and wondering, what could we at Untold Italy do to help? Because for me, I'm not going to take this lying down. I believe we've got amazing content. I think we help hundreds and thousands of people plan trips to Italy. But we have so much content. We have over 240 podcast episodes and hundreds of articles that, if I'm being really honest, are hard to search and they do take a while to read. So for this problem, I've delved into my past where I spent 15 years working in various roles at some of the biggest tech companies, including IBM. I've always been curious about how we can make technology work for us, but I do also have a healthy dose of skepticism around hype and the move to automate everything. So what I wanted to do is create a tool that would be helpful to you as trip planners. Introducing Zia, your new online Italy travel assistant. What we've done is created a free online tool that accesses all the information on Untold Italy, our podcast transcripts and articles to provide you with concise and instant answers to your questions about travelling in Italy. We've also given you the opportunity to delve deeper into the answer to learn more if you want to. So, for example, if you want to know where to buy Colosseum tickets from the official website, Sia has the answer. If you need information about the Jubilee next year, she has that too. Want to know what to expect when travelling in Italy in May? Yes, Zia can help with weather information, events, best places to visit, and more. Zia is an AI-powered chat tool that creates instant verified answers from Untold Italy's database of content. So it's really like you were asking me or my team a question about your trip to Italy without having to sift through all the noise on Google, forums, or other platforms. As we update our articles regularly, sometimes monthly, and publish weekly podcast episodes, this tool is also updated so you can be sure we're keeping an eye on the veracity of the information. Our team keeps their fingers on the pulse by exploring Italy for those of them who live there and visiting regularly and checking in with fellow travellers via our online forum. We cast a wide net across many resources to make sure that you have the best information out there about travel in Italy. So why is our travel assistant called Zia? Well, Zia is the Italian word for auntie. And I don't know about you, but I have a bunch of very smart aunts and I trust their advice. So we thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a travel auntie who could help with all our travel queries and bring you the ideas and information that you need to plan your trip in one neat package? So friends, why not give Zia a try for yourself? Just navigate to untolditaly.com/ask-us and you'll be taken straight to the chat session where you can ask your burning questions and get an instant response. Now, should you ask Zia a very tricky question and she doesn't know the answer, we'll be notified about it and can respond accordingly. The system will then be updated so the answer is there should you be asked by another future traveller. I hope you like Zia, our online travel assistant. She's an ongoing project and will be refined and updated as we get new podcasts and blog posts and update our existing content. This tool is free to use, so go ahead and give it a try, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback about it. Again, you can try Zia out at untolditaly.com/ask-us. And this is the first step in a few more exciting projects coming your way to help you make the most of your time in Italy and make that trip planning process a little bit smoother. That's all for today. If you'd like to access the resources I mentioned in this episode and the link to our online travel assistant, head on over to our website show notes at untolditaly.com/247 for episode number 247. Grazie mille. Thank you to all our wonderful guests for your ongoing support of Untold Italy. I do hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, then it would be amazing if you gave us a rating or review in your favourite podcast app. That way we can reach more Italy travel lovers just like you. If you listen on Spotify, you can also leave comments on each episode, and I really love reading all of those. And we now have comment answering too, so I'm ready and waiting for those too. Next week on Untold Italy, I'm helping a friend and a very special guest launch her new book about eating around Italy's regions. But until then, it's ciao for now.
The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.